would seize your body if someone broke into your home in the middle of the night and kidnapped you? How scared would you be if your kidnapper held you for several days and filmed himself as he raped you? And then, after all of that torment, he drops you off near your family home and no one believes your story. This was the awful reality for Denise Huskins and her family. Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Crafty Crimes podcast. Today, we will be making just a small basket with this cotton nylon blend yarn and a 6mm hook. And all I'm going to be doing is single crocheting into a round, more or less. I'll link the pattern that I'm using as a guide in the description box so that you can follow along if you'd like to. And while I crochet, let's discuss the poorly named Gone Girl kidnapping of 29-year-old Denise Huskins. So it's time to get out your crafting supplies and learn about this all too recent horror with me. Denise Huskins was born to Mike and Jane Ramel near Huntington Beach, California in 1987. She hasn't released a lot of details about what her life was like growing up, but considering how well of an adjusted adult she is and how well she overcame all of this trauma, I'd say that her childhood is pretty normal. She graduated from California State University with a degree in kinesiology in 2009, and then she went on to get a graduate degree from the Long Island University at Brooklyn. She returned to California and began her career in 2014. While working in Vallejo, Denise met her now husband, Aaron Quinn, who was also a physical therapist at the hospital that they worked at. He concentrated a little more on personal fitness, whereas she was more of a traditional physical therapist. But regardless, the pair hit it off and began to date in 2014 and eventually moved in together. So now that you've met the victim, Denise, let's take a look at what happened. On March 22nd, 2015, Aaron and Denise got into a verbal altercation over some text messages that Denise had found on Aaron's phone. According to Denise, the text messages suggested that Aaron and his ex-fiancée, Andrea, whom they both worked with at the hospital, were going to get back together and that Aaron was still very much in love with his ex-fiancée. Now, obviously, this was very upsetting to Denise, but Aaron assured Denise that he loved her, it was over with Andrea, and the two put the fight aside and went to bed in their shared Vallejo home. Sometime the next day, around 3 o'clock in the morning, wee hours of the morning, someone broke into the couple's home while they slept. A recorded audio was played for the couple as they were drugged and bound with zip ties and blindfolded with blacked out swim goggles. Denise and Aaron would later testify that they believed multiple people were in their home that night because they heard multiple voices whispering during the attack. The kidnapper then placed a pair of headphones on Aaron's head, which muffled the sound of him taking Denise out of the home. And over the headphones played a recording of the kidnapper telling Aaron that he had his personal information and banking information, and that in order to get Denise back and keep her alive and uninjured, he was going to need to pay a $15,000 ransom. Several hours later, Aaron woke up alone on his couch with his home burglarized and Denise missing. One of the items missing was Aaron's laptop computer that contained his banking information. As soon as he was able to, Aaron called the police and then spent the next 18 hours being interrogated. Police suspected Aaron of hurting Denise almost immediately, especially upon finding out that the couple had gotten into a fight just hours before the kidnapping took place. Detective Matt Mustard suggested that Aaron's ego couldn't handle Denise attempting to leave him, so he killed her and staged a break-in. His reasoning was that a man who was truly worried and upset about his missing girlfriend wouldn't have waited 10 hours after the attack to contact authorities. Aaron maintained his innocence and reiterated for the detective that he had been drugged and was not able to call the police because he wasn't in a clear enough state of mind to make that call, which is pretty sad no matter what you believe. Meanwhile, while Aaron is being interrogated, Denise is missing. She had been thrown into the trunk of a car and driven from Vallejo to South Lake Tahoe, which is about 160 miles away. She would be kept bound and blindfolded the entire time she was in transit. One of the first things the kidnapper did upon unloading Denise from the trunk of the stolen vehicle was have her make an audio recording as proof of life. In this recording, she identified herself as Denise Huskins and used a plane crash that had occurred earlier that day in the French Alps to verify the date that the recording was made. The kidnapper would then send that audio recording to the San Francisco Chronicles on March 24th via email. Now, Denise is kept blindfolded and drugged in a locked room. And as her kidnapper is dragging her to the room he's going to keep her in, he tells her that this fate wasn't meant for her, but was instead meant for Andrea, Aaron's ex. He then tells her that he and this group that he's involved with are going to hold her for 2 days, and then they're going to let her go. And he goes on to tell her about his struggles with PTSD and his time in the military, which I think is pretty weird. And then sometime later that day, the kidnapper tells Denise that he is going to have to record himself raping her to ensure that she doesn't talk to the police when he lets her go. Denise says that she remembers dissociating from this event and just going somewhere else in her mind so that she didn't have to be there. After this first sexual assault, Denise is allowed to shower and is told that she doesn't have to wear the blacked out swim goggles as long as she's alone. Denise is kept drugged during her time in captivity and is kept in a small room with locks and blacked out windows. So the way she perceives time is distorted. However, she can definitively tell us that she was raped a second time. According to Denise, the kidnapper came to her and said that the first assault didn't look authentic enough and that they were going to need to do it again to make it look real and like they were in love. So he offered her some wine and many bottles of booze, taped her eyelids shut, and recorded himself sexually assaulting her again. After the second assault, the kidnapper then played the newscast of her father begging her to fight and to get away and to come back home to her family. And how messed up is that, to kidnap someone, sexually assault them, and then play a tape of their family begging them to come home. 2 days after the kidnapping, on March 25th, 2015, Denise is dropped off near her family home in Huntington Beach, California, about 400 miles away from where she was kidnapped in Vallejo. The ransom that Aaron Quinn claims the kidnapper asked for was never paid. Before letting her out of the car, the kidnapper tells Denise that no matter what, she can't tell the police about his military service or about the rapes. He threatened to harm her family if she did. When she got out of the car and walked to her family's apartment, she realized that they were already gone for work for the day. So she knocked on a neighbor's door, borrowed their phone, and waited inside the neighbor's apartment for the police to show up. And they did show up. And when they arrived, they wanted to interrogate the neighbors and interview Denise. It came out during an interview with Denise's mother that Denise had been molested as a child at the age of 12. And it was during this revelation that Detective Matt Mustard told Denise's mother that victims of sexual assault will often lie about their experiences in the future to relive the thrill of what happened to them. And while Denise wouldn't tell detectives this, she does admit to having been sexually assaulted a second time at a friend's house at the age of 19. During interviews with Denise's family, the police insinuate that Denise staged the attack. At this point in time, the police considered Denise a suspect in her own disappearance, and this assumption was not helped by the fact that Denise left out crucial information of her time in captivity out of fear for the safety of her family. The Vallejo Police Department denied her a rape kit until she would come in and agree to be interviewed and give a full statement about everything that happened, to include the sexual assaults. That same evening, Vallejo Police spokesperson Lieutenant Kenny Parks would make a public announcement saying that he believed that the kidnapping was faked, and this started the Gone Girl Kidnapping moniker. In an outrage, the kidnapper actually emailed the San Francisco Chronicles again with proof that Denise did not stage her own kidnapping and demanded that the police apologize to her. The email would include details about the kidnapping as well as photos of Denise and the room she was held in. The kidnapper would email the San Francisco Chronicles 2 more times before the end of March, and then all communications would cease. And funnily enough, the emails that the perpetrator sent to the newspaper corroborated Denise and Aaron's story and account of what happened, but Vallejo police refused to look into it. So now that we know the details of this case, let's take a look at the perpetrator, Matt Moeller. Matt Moeller served in the Marine Corps from 1995 to 1999, receiving an honorable discharge as a sergeant. After his release from the military, Moeller would graduate from Pomona College in 2003 with a double major in economics and technology with summa cum laude honors. Upon completing his undergraduate degree, Moeller moved to Boston and studied law at Harvard. He dedicated his time as a graduate student to assisting immigrants and low-income victims of domestic violence with their legal paperwork. His colleagues would actually describe him as unusually dedicated to his clients. Moeller remained an active member on campus until 2009, when he moved to Silicon Valley. He would be credited as an author in 4 different publications before his move. Moeller would then bounce around law firms until he founded a non-for-profit organization in 2012. His nonprofit, Immigrant Ability, provided immigrants with mental illnesses access to legal advice for free. Shockingly, Matt would have his law license suspended in 2013 for failure to pay his dues. The state of California would formally disbar him in 2015 for failure to appear in court, and he would be disbarred federally in 2017 following his convictions for the crimes he committed against Denise and her family. So, how does a decorated veteran, a Harvard-educated lawyer, and an immigration activist turn to a life of crime? Well, the short answer is that we don't know. Matt Moeller has yet to give a legitimate reason for the things he did to Denise and her family, and as recently as 2022 has even denied that the attacks occurred at all. The only thing Matt has said in his defense in regards to the kidnappings is that he doesn't know why he did it and suggests that his bipolar disorder is to blame, which I think is a cop-out of an answer. Bipolar disorder doesn't make you kidnap people. It doesn't make you rape them and As you'll hear later, it doesn't make you commit acts of assault. So we don't know. But what we do know is that in the months following Denise's kidnapping, the media was a whirlwind shitstorm. Many news outlets called the ordeal a hoax thanks to the Vallejo Police Department, and the media's involvement really cemented the Gone Girl kidnapping moniker. Her case had hit a dead end until Mueller would strike again. And by dead end, I mean that the Vallejo Police Department refused to consider Denise's case as anything other than fake. In the following months, Denise would receive hate messages online from friends, family, acquaintances, and strangers, which made the trauma that much harder to process. On June 15th, 2015... Okay, cut that out. On June 5th, 2015, Mueller broke into a home in Dublin, California at 3 o'clock in the morning. Court documents don't list the names of the victims of this break-in, but ultimately Mueller was unsuccessful. He was chased off by the husband who lived in the house, and in his hurry to flee, he left his cell phone, duct tape, and zip ties behind. It was because of the lost cell phone that the Dublin Police Department would be able to identify Mueller as the suspect. Over the next few days, the Alameda County Sheriff's Office would search Mueller's South Lake Tahoe home, giving them the damning evidence they needed to arrest him for the kidnapping and rape of Denise. A pair of blacked out swim goggles with a blonde hair strand attached and Aaron's stolen laptop were found amongst the other items that had been used the night of the crime. Audio recordings, photos, and videos found on Mueller's personal devices corroborated Denise's story, and Matt was arrested on June 9th. Detective Misty Carousel was instrumental in connecting the two cases. If it had not been for her hard work and dedication, Huskins and her family may have never received the justice they deserved. Matt's arrest was Misty's first case as a detective. She was able to connect Mueller to a string of other assaults and sexual battery cases dating as far back as 2009. Misty Carousel has since been promoted to sergeant within the Alameda County Sheriff's Department. Matt Mueller was convicted of kidnapping at the federal level. I lost count of my stitches here. There we go. Matt Mueller was convicted of kidnapping at the federal level in March 2017 and given a 40-year sentence. The state of California sought charges against Mueller for 2 counts of rape, false imprisonment, kidnapping, burglary, and robbery in January of 2018. As recently as 2022, Matt has attempted to appeal his conviction several times, claiming to be too mentally incompetent to stand trial. He was briefly hospitalized in 2020 and forcibly medicated to treat his schizophrenia. The state ultimately sentenced him to 31 years in prison to be served concurrently with his 40-year federal sentence. Mueller was never charged for any crimes before or after Denise's kidnapping and rape. In the years since her kidnapping, Denise Huskins and her family appear to be thriving. She and Aaron married in September of 2018 after winning a $2.5 million defamation suit against the Vallejo Police Department. They would send an official apology letter to the couple in 2022. Aaron and Denise have welcomed 2 daughters into the world in 2020 and 2022, respectively. Denise still works primarily as a physiotherapist. However, she has released a book about her situation entitled Victim F: From Crime Victims to Suspects to Survivors, and advocates on her social media and as a keynote speaker for women's rights, and speaks out about how the police are not infallible and how they can improve their investigations in these types of scenarios. By all appearances, Denise and her family seem to be thriving, and I am so happy for them. It takes a courageous person to face down that much trauma and come out smiling, and that seems to be exactly what Denise and her family did. So good job, Denise. Hell yeah. Now, on to a more serious note. If you or someone you know is struggling with the aftermath of sexual assault, please do not be afraid to reach out to someone. The number for the National Sexual Assault Hotline and the website for RAINN is listed in the description box. No matter who you are, age, sex, ethnicity, you're not alone, and you did not deserve what happened to you, and your story deserves to be heard. This is as far as I was able to craft this episode. I'm not very fast, nor am I very good, but that's okay, because this is about having fun and creating things that you like. But regardless, I hope you come back to my channel next week to see the finished project and see how I finished it up, and to learn more about Denise's story. Don't forget to choose kindness where you can, because you never know how it can change someone's life. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be seeing all of you soon. And I promise I will end this video as soon as I finish this row.